Hello my little subscribbles, it's time for another video. I'm not gonna lie, I'm sad that this is even happening here. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, extra credits, how the mighty have fallen. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I still like extra credits to some extent. They have done so much good for the gaming industry, and me personally. I wouldn't have made the few little games I did without them, and even though I don't really make games much anymore, though I may go back to that one day, it still taught me how to do a project, and is partially responsible for this channel and giving me some of the skills necessary to do the projects I do want to do now, and all that stuff. And you know, just knowing that I made one of the games I think should be made is pretty good, and I owe them for it. Their videos on game design, especially the old ones like How to Start Your First Game, are great videos, and I still recommend them to anyone, but I tell you, they're not what they used to be. They're sadly not what they used to be, and it's sad. It really is. Now, we all remember the whole Nazi video, and I thought about commenting at the time, but I chose not to. But this one I do want to talk about to some extent. I won't go into the... Now, go watch the video first, as I honestly, there are just some moments that you have to see it to believe it. There are some other people who have done great commentary on this video, but I want to throw in my 2 cents on the matter, because I just want to, okay? It's not necessarily for views. I know I'm going to get some flack for this one day, but I don't care. The whole argument of this, premise of the video is that, now first, they still work on the false premise that, an evil race, or the proper word would be species in fiction, is always racist to a real group of people, which is just... Well, see my orc video. I'm going to try to link in the video for a description of why that isn't true, at least not in the way they mean it. But, or at least it's more complicated than what I say it is. But I'm not going to try to go into the details on that video, what that video covered, as my thoughts haven't really changed. But something that they comment on the video is the whole premise of is that it removes player agency, and they've worked on a slight false premise here. Now, the premise is that this hypothetical game had the choice of, do you want to be friendly to the monsters? But then the monsters will actively go against that choice. Most games don't give you a choice you can't do something with. Like, if you can't possibly be friends with insert NPC group, the game won't provide you with the choice to do that. They should know this. Game designers are crunched. Everything has to matter. Frivolous elements that don't do anything, redundancies, don't help in game design. No game designer worth 2 cents would possibly install systems that have no actual meaning. Like, if you can't do something... So, like, if the game was never meant... Like, if we have our orcs or monsters or whatever, and they're supposed to be just kill them all, doesn't matter, you mean... The game wouldn't build a system into it that does that. It just wouldn't. And if the game did provide... Like, imagine this. Imagine you're playing a romance, like a visual novel romance game, or a game with romance options like Mass Effect. The game wouldn't provide you with a potential romance path, like romance options, for a character that you couldn't get with because of game logic or something. It would be a wasted time. It wouldn't make sense. Now, granted, there are some kind of weird exceptions. You know, if a game's trying to be artsy or trying to trick you, it might do something. But if the game is playing it straight, then it won't do stuff like that. Sorry, my cat is currently trying to step in my feet way. But... And it just doesn't. And that's working on a false premise. And number 2, you're assuming that the players en masse want to be nice to the evil monsters. Which, yeah, there's always got to be someone, but in general, you build game design for the majority of your players, in general. And I don't think there's a very strong group of players that always want in every game to be friendly to the evil monsters. I just don't see that as being common. Another false premise that they go with in the video itself is that they go with this idea that it's inherently bad world building, and I don't know. I would say it depends of what this species is supposed to fill in the hypothetical game world. Like, if you think about it here. If they're supposed to just be the NPC mooks that you throw at the enemy, that are heroes and our protagonists to battle the monsters, and they mean nothing more, then they don't need to be complex. And they just don't need to be. It's utilitarian. If they're supposed to be a complex, fleshed out race, and they don't have the ability, and they are portrayed like that, then there's some more argument you can make. But in general, it's not necessary. But another thing that kind of gets in the way of their argument here is the idea that just the premise, like, what I consider to be a false premise, truly, at least if you ask me. Oh, and also, they kept saying how, they compare, like, oh, these monsters, they get compared to, real-life people groups. Now, listen, I don't want to get too much into that in this video, but I'm just gonna be honest here. No one sees orcs or other evil monsters and sees, like, people of color. No one does that. Like, I don't want to get too angry sounding here, but I mean this legitimately. I don't, and most people don't see orc or dark elf or whatever evil race it is this week and see a black person or an Asian person or any other people of color. We just don't see it like that. The only people who see that is you. And it's stupid. And the idea that people are dumb enough to compare them is just dumb. No, I have never, in the history once in my life, known anyone or playing with anyone or thought myself, when I saw an orc, I saw a black person. No one thinks that. No one. If anything, orcs are often more inspired by the barbarians who tore down Rome, who were shocking white. Sorry, just a little tangent there. That it was getting on my nerves. And then they go on like, well, what if the game is about just killing monsters? Like, oh, it's just an XP, like, murder everything in a 5-mile radius kind of thing. And that's where the argument falls apart the worst. But they continue on and go with the idea that oh, but like, how are the players supposed to get involved when you're like killing monsters if you don't know if they're evil or however they word it exactly? I've seen the video, I just can't recall the exact words they use here. And you know why I say that? You don't always need a super good reason. No, hear me out here. Let's say we're playing Age of Empires 3, okay? And I'm playing the British, and you're playing the French. Now, you could try to say there's a historical reason. I mean, like on a skirmish map. We're playing a skirmish map here, okay? I don't need, like, the players don't need a reason of, oh, why are we fighting on this one skirmish map? It doesn't necessarily have to be a thing for, like, a skirmish game or a simple game like that. It doesn't have to be. It just does. Like, they're just the enemy team. No deeper complex about it. Why in TF2 are red and blue fighting? Does it matter? I mean, in a game, for a game sense, does it matter? They're just the other guys. I mean, games are only complex as they need to be for the pure systems. And as Longbone pointed out, I can't remember how to say her exact YouTube name, but I'll link her video down in the description because it's great on this video, and she's a good channel. You should watch her. She pointed out that you had told, like, the idea that you can't make a simple good versus evil plot is dumb. Like, you can make tons of, like, and that's the thing, is that not everything needs to be super morally complex. The bad guys can just be the bad guys, the good guys can just be the good guys, and you don't need to worry about some deeper aspects sometimes. You can get away with that. And another false premise that the video also says is that orcs are always the bad guys in fiction, and that's only so true. Like, they usually represent a faction. Like, you often see this. Warcraft is a good example of this. They usually start out as the first antagonist, but then become another faction when the real bad guys show up. They're often just a group. And even when they are the monsters, they're just a fictional race. They have no real connection. And ultimately, the real point of this, and what I'm trying to get around with all of this, oh, and also the idea that killing something that is inherently evil, that's like, oh, it's just pure, like they say in the video that it's more moral to kill someone who chose evil rather than someone who's just born evil. I don't think that's right. A lot of people have pointed out this, but I don't think it's right. That the idea that something that is truly evil, just pure evil, doesn't have even have the free agency to choose good, is just evil. And then killing that creature, that monster that just wants to kill and destroy, is somehow worse than killing someone that theoretically someone at any point could choose to do good again, is nonsensical. Now, granted, I don't work in that worldview. I say, if you're trying to do evil or kill me or my family, I don't care. I'll shoot you down regardless. But how is that more moral? Someone that could theoretically learn the problem of their actions and choose to do good again. It's just dumb. Oh, and also, small thing, why are people so dedicated to the villains having to be diverse? Like, no, really think about it. They're the bad guys. They don't need to be super diverse. If anything, it helps when they're not diverse. Because, stuff like bigotry, racism, sexism, all that stuff, that's something what villains would do. So the villain group doesn't have to be this super, like, oh, we're inclusive of everyone. They could actually be the opposite. Wouldn't that be accurate? Is not letting other people into your group not a kind of villainous trait? Do I have to bring up Nazi Germany? But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I just wanted to make this little video. I feel bad. I love extra credits. Love them. The channel did so much good, and I feel bad they've fallen so far. It's so ironic that the people who made videos years ago saying of how video games should be free to express their own thoughts and stories are now trying to control what the stories say. It's sad. It truly is sad, and I hope that one day they learn better. Personally, I don't know what caused it. I hope they get better soon, though. Anyway, that's my video. I'm sorry if it's a bit of a downer.